Thank you very much. It was a fascinating presentation from both professors and also the commentary. Before we open it to the floor for Q&A, I just want to mention to everyone, I forgot to say at the beginning, we're actually recording today's presentation, and we plan to post it afterwards on the website so that it can be seen by everyone who's interested in this topic, because it is so important for the future of Japan and for all the residents here as well, and then of course for the scientific community as well. Well, we will open the floor to Q&A. I just remind you that your remarks will be recorded. If you do have a private question and you don't want it to be out in the open, you can go up to the professors afterwards in the discussion session next door when we're having some food and drink. So I would actually like to ask the first question, and this one really to follow up on a comment that Shikata-san mentioned at the outset of his remarks. Shikata-san, you asked, maybe rhetorically, maybe not, for both professors to perhaps come to Japan and to teach and to work in terms of getting across information on radiation and research to the international community. I note that there have been discussions in the Japanese government about creating special zones in Tohoku that would focus on specific areas such as research and development, and I'm curious whether there has been anything further to report to us in terms of research on radiation issues or any activities to make that more concrete.
Well, I know that there is a very strong interest in some of the people in Fukushima to come up with the kind of research center focusing on radiation issues, and this is something I think Prime Minister Noda himself kind of mentioned in his published article in terms of coming up with a research and development center in Fukushima, maybe as related to radiation or maybe as related to promoting renewable energy. But maybe if we go on to Tohoku, like Tohoku University, then I know that there's a very strong interest to come up with the newly strengthened center on tsunami and natural disasters. So hopefully that this tragic event could be transformed into some academic centers where students, younger generation of students in Tohoku would be able to learn some of the cutting-edge research activities in Tohoku area.
Thank you. Professors Wade, Tokuhiro, would you wish to comment?
Well, I think personally I would welcome an opportunity to come to Japan, and I think what's needed is not so much a specialized a silo approach, but I think as you know from this accident, we span a lot of disciplines. And now what's actually popular in the United States in academia is a cross-disciplinary approach. So this is a great opportunity for Japan to not only produce new engineers and scientists, but new engineers and scientists who also have a background in risk communication, risk management, crisis management, psychology, and human factors. There's really not an academic program anywhere in the world that really addresses this range of disciplines, and so there's a great opportunity for Japan to establish that for the future.
I feel a little humble because, of course, this is my first time in Japan, and here I am commenting on deep questions in Japanese culture, but I think most of the problems are not Japanese problems. It happens to have happened here. These are international problems, and I think they're ones which require international solutions. On the subject of education, I think that we have allowed ourselves in this world to allow people to specialize on their little salami slice of knowledge to the point at which nobody actually can see the whole thing, except a few retired professors who haven't got anything to do. So I think we are very, in the sciences, very aware of the need to probe subjects deeply, but we've done this at the expense of being able to see the whole picture. And I think we really need to do something about that, and I have found it enormously enlightening working on this problem and then coming to talking tonight on the real life application of what I've been thinking about for 5 years.
Thank you. I believe we have some questions. First question, Nate. Someone from the staff, please approach with a microphone.
This is Nate Grady from Boeing. Thank you to the professors and for Mr. Shikata for a great presentation. A number of our employees that were very interested in this event tonight, and I think we have a few here today. I think we were hoping to hear a little bit more about food in Japan, and perhaps I take it from the professor's presentation that the food in Japan is safe based on the very data-heavy focus. But I wanted to ask that question, if you could answer and give us a little bit more about what's being done to check the food, the safety of food, particularly the vegetables and so forth being grown in the region that was affected by the nuclear fallout. Thank you.
When dangers are close to the surface, I mean close to being dangerous, then of course it is necessary to measure everything that you eat. But in this particular case, the danger levels are so far away that the spot checks on, I know that this is the kind of thing that's been worrying people, the spot checks on 1 in 100 samples or 1 in 10 or something would seem to me to be completely adequate. They're only not adequate if in fact the danger levels are close by, and so something might get through. Of course, not all samples are the same. But as I hope you have realized from what we've said, the real danger levels are so far away that I think people shouldn't be worried about whether this particular sample has been measured or not.
No, I would agree. I think I would agree with Professor Allison completely. That's really one of the reasons why that we did not go into detail about the food safety issue. I mean, that the levels are so low that we are certainly in agreement that the food is safe in Japan.
Dr. Allison, based on what you
I'm sorry, please identify yourself first.
I'm sorry, my name is Susan Kawada, and I am the mother of 3 children in Tokyo, and I came to hear more about food safety. And Dr. Allison, I was wondering, you have a daughter, and let's say you have 3 small children. You're living in Tokyo for 5 years from 3/11. Would you have no hesitation to purchase produce, meat, fish from the Tohoku area and feed them to your children for 5 years?
Let me tell you a bit more about my children. I have 3 children, only one of whom was required to read my book, but the others have 2. And in fact, my son is waiting for a copy of the Japanese edition, but I'm not quite sure what he's going to do with it. But they all have children, and I have 6 grandchildren.
Okay, let's talk about your grandchildren then. Let's say that they were here for 5 years.
Right, okay. No, I would have no worries at all. There was a time, of course, in the first few weeks when we genuinely, and you here, genuinely didn't know exactly how far this was going to go. And that, of course, was the hard period where the data wasn't available and the ability to keep the reactors cool was not known. And that was the dangerous period. But that is long gone now, and we know that the thing didn't get as bad as it might have done. We know that the amount of radioactivity released into the air was in fact much, much less than Chernobyl, but we know that here there's been more of a problem associated with the water, but it's right next to the ocean, and the ocean is very deep. I see no problems even with the water.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Rick Weisberg from ELSS. Thank you for all the panelists. Thank you very much for coming and speaking with us. Dr. Allison, if I understand correctly, your argument that the international safety standards for radiation are excessively conservative is based on radiation levels from medical radiation that are tolerated, and that...
No. Sorry.
Okay, let me finish. So anyway, if I understand correctly, you argue that we willingly accept radiation from medical treatment, and it doesn't do us any harm. But if I understand the medical community correctly, they don't argue that medical radiation is harmless. They argue that the harm is outweighed by the benefits. And if I understand correctly, you interpret the data for low-level exposure as saying that low levels are completely safe or minuscule risk of cancer later in life. And there is, I agree with you that there's no statistically significant evidence that very low-level exposures do increase cancer risk. However, those very low-level exposures for the bomb survivors from Hiroshima and Nagasaki, the pattern of the data, though it's not statistically significant, is consistent with no threshold, linear extrapolation down to very low levels. So people are concerned that when we say something is safe, does it mean there's no risk? Does it mean there's a risk in 1 in 1,000 or 1 in 10,000? And the fact that science can't resolve that question at this stage, I think people would be more reassured by acknowledgement from the government that there are alternative interpretations, and saying that there's a threshold below which the risk is 0 may not be a very reassuring message for the public. Thank you.
Sorry, I didn't say that the risk was 0. I said we couldn't measure it. It's so low. Now, everything we do has a risk. If I go out in my car with my children or grandchildren on board, there is a place 10 meters away where if I put the car there, I would have a fatal accident. We accept those kind of risks when we drive a car. We understand them, we live with them, and we don't go there where the traffic risk is the equivalent of 10 sieverts per hour, which would be fatal. Why can't we be grown up and look at radiation the way that we look at other risks in life? No, I'm not saying there's no risk below 100 millisieverts. I'm just saying it's so low that I can't even measure it when hundreds of thousands of people have been bombed by 2 nuclear bombs and their medical records studied for 50 years. That's about the biggest study that I could possibly conceive of the subject. And still, this business about whether the thing is linear or not, which is addressed at great length, and I hope carefully and I hope considerately in my book, is not the right way to think about the problem. We've got to think about balancing risks. Nothing is risk-free. Otherwise, we wouldn't get up in the morning, but I don't think our doctors would tell us that that would be very good for us either.
My name's Dick Eastman. I'm an American lawyer based in Tokyo. My question is primarily for Dr. Allison. I guess it's a two-pronged question. One, are there significant bodies of scientific opinion differing from yours on these matters? That's one. And two, if not, why haven't we heard more about this minimal risk, which has caused great social and economic disaster in the Fukushima area?
Well, I think we've got to look at this from the point of view of the members of the safety community. They were charged, including the International Commission for Radiological Protection. They were charged with providing the citizens of the world with as low a possible radiation environment as they could arrange. And they've done a very good job on that. And they have studied and made data available, and that's what we asked them to do. Now, they don't like me very much because I threaten their careers and livelihoods and employment. I understand that, and I understand why. But quite a lot of them do come to me and say, you're absolutely right, but it would put my job on the line. So I think there are, again, there are a lot of human factors that go into here. Now, I am not aware, well, there are one or two people, particularly noisy people who who do not agree with me, but they have never come and spoken to me, and I haven't met them. And certainly when I come to occasions like this, I don't find opinions expressed which cause any difficulties in what I believe and what I'm saying. But of course we're always learning and we should always listen. I'm sorry, have I answered your question?
The first half, do you have any views on the second half, which is why we haven't heard more about this?
Well, we haven't heard more about it because the problem hasn't sort of hit the headlines, as it were. It has now, and I wouldn't be here. I wrote my book 2 years ago. I went to Australia and talked about it there because I thought I would find a useful and interesting community which didn't agree with me, but I didn't. I gave talks in schools and universities and public occasions not dissimilar to this, that went with quite a number of people there. And as in the UK, I found that people just didn't know about radiation. They really were interested to learn, and that was the first thing. But I think you haven't heard about this because it hasn't been brought to the boil. But I hope, and one of the best things that could come out of Fukushima is that we would learn as a world community to appreciate radiation and learn how to live with it.
Thank you. Would everyone raise their hand who has a question so I can see how many we have left? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, what I'm going to do, since we're already almost at 7 o'clock, and this is next door, we have a buffet and food and drink awaiting us. The more time we spend for Q&A here, the less time we have to eat and to socialize. What I'd like to do is to just take very quickly 2 last questions, and then the professors will be available afterwards for you to talk with them individually. So we have 1 and 2 in the back, the lady in the brown, and then in the back, yeah, the gentleman with the mustache.
Hi, thank you. My name is Allison Birch, and I have a question for Dr. Tokuhiro. You mentioned about the need to deal with the contaminated soil. You talked about why it was important to remove it. I'm wondering why you think it's important to remove the soil if it kind of doesn't matter, if we can just all go roll around in radiated soil. But I mean, I think I'm saying a little too much. But I'd like to hear why we should move the radiated soil and what the risks are there.
Okay.
Thank you.
Well, I think what I meant to say is that if there's a set limit, and there is one now, and certainly there's an institutional responsibility to have some process to remove that. If you set the limit, then you discover that there's, well, in this case, soil above that limit. You need to have a process. So certainly the usual practice with waste of actually of many kind, right? Is that you remove it and then you take it to a place where it can be handled or processed. So I can ask you a question. Does the amount of identified soil that's of measurable level above a limit, does that belong in the playground for extended periods of time? And I think that's the point that I was making. The process should be there to remove that mound of soil. Okay, I don't know if that's answered your question, but I think my personal opinion is that there's an institutional responsibility to have a process and to remove that if you have a limit and you've measured and quantified and say that this is above the set limit.
Good evening. Thank you for coming today. My name is David Moore. I'm the administrator for Tokyo Kids in Radiation Facebook community and a community action group in Suginami-ku, Tokyo. So I'm sorry, I've got a two-part question. As Director Shikata pointed out, many in the scientific community do differ in opinion concerning the effect of low-level radiation. Dr. Allison pointed out that cesium is flushed from the body mostly, and it is not really distributed, but even in BEIR7 phase 2 from the NRC, they say that there are definite links to childhood leukemia, cardiovascular disease, often called Chernobyl heart, renal carcinoma, etc. So that's for the cesium question. And beyond that, on Friday, I'm sure you all know, there was a government release from MEXT stating that there was a fairly large strontium and plutonium release, which had previously been called impossible. They found back in April Neptunium-239 in Itatemura, and in June and July, put the study together. Why were we not informed in April?
Well, I'm not the right person to say why you weren't informed in April, but because I wasn't here. But in any scientific work, there are always measurements which have to be confirmed by people doing more measurements. And the trouble about this sort of thing being aired too quickly in the press is that the measurements may not have actually be confirmable, and they may actually be wrong. As for the, look, there's a literature on this kind of subject which is must be 5 miles high. And have I read it all? No, I haven't. And other things that I don't know that are in it, I'm sure there are. But what I tried to show you this evening is not just my beliefs, because why the hell should you be interested in my beliefs? I tried to show you why I am suggesting certain things, and I think this is a framework on which you can then add or subtract other things as they are discovered. Now, I doubt the statements that you are making about leukemia and so on, but I can't contradict them because I haven't looked at those particular papers. Maybe I'll change the handing over to Professor Akira on plutonium. You want to?
No, I think I would. I did see the headline, and I mean, I would like to look at the data myself. I think plutonium can be detected, but actually, it was not surprising to me. But I would like to see the data for myself. How they determined that? Yeah, I would like to look at that. I haven't studied it, so at this point, I think it would be premature to make any conclusions or give a professional opinion. I would like to see the data and how it was done.
So, Shikata-san?
Sure. I guess there has been environmental monitoring that has been taking place, and I guess you are following this issue very closely, and there have been before there have not been the kind of prepared monitoring system for the nuclides like strontium or plutonium, and my understanding is that the government started to strengthen its environmental monitoring to detect such nuclides as strontium or plutonium, and I also think that the government has been releasing information as has been detected, and of course there are issues as related to the food. There is detection in food items, and there is an assumption made according to our Nuclear Safety Commission that proportion of strontium-90 is 1/10 of cesium-137, which I guess is a kind of scientifically accepted standard. And so there is the provisional standard value that is introduced. Excuse me? Well, this is the assumption that is made. So this is I understand that it's the global, the nationwide standards, and also regarding the government's, the Japanese government point of view in terms of detection of the strontium that was detected in the soil. Given the fact that it is extremely small amounts, we think that it is possible to ensure the food safety. And on the issue of plutonium, there have been the cases that within the soil of the vicinity of nuclear power plants, there have been cases of detection of the plutonium, but my understanding is that there have not been cases of detection beyond the land where the TEPCO's Fukushima Daiichi nuclear power plants belong to.
Okay, so I said we would have 2 questions, but there were a number of hands that went up, and actually I've been overruled in my job as moderator today by the ACCJ president, Mike Alfont, who said, let's take 3 more questions. So I've got 1, 2, and 3 right there. Lady in the red first, please.